Konnichiwa, bitch.
The real is back. What we talking about?
Fuck around, see me plumbing, shot, I couldn't stomach. When niggas told me I was bugging, I was seeing numbers, touch it. Bottles clinking on the curb, think I'm out of budget. Now one got me with.
Hey. Say.
I'd rather just be
The
wrong
GOAT.
than to settle with
What are
it.
we talking about? Anyways, y'all see the title. Mike with the tier list. I listened to every single Mike album today, and I want to talk about them. So let's get right into it. Listen, man, Mike is one of the best rappers. Not in just the abstract wave, but he has made a lane for himself over the past damn near 10 years. Honestly, being one of the best rappers of the new generation. Has shown to be very, very consistent in his drops and always showing artistic growth with every single project. Even to usher in a new kind of lo-fi abstract wave with such heavy hitters like recently, over the years, Mike has been able to reinvent himself while still sticking to the roots of what he's been known for. And that is always kind of structuring his music, all of his tracks, as kind of like a streams of thought. You're not really getting crazy hooks from him. You're not getting crazy bridges throughout his instrumentals. A lot of times, Mike is very, very minimalist, and he's very, very straight to the point with what he's trying to present, but he's saying so much when he does it. That's why you're getting like 1.5 to 2.5 minute tracks at most from Mike. Through this, Mike has been able to build quite the cult following, along with a whole branch of hip-hop just evolving, linking with guys like Earl Sweatshirt, Navy Blue, Alchemist, etc., kind of building this whole branch of abstract hip-hop into new directions that no one has ever thought about before. With all that being said, we're gonna talk about every Mike album. I know EPs are on here. We're just gonna do a speed run of those. Honestly, a lot of the EPs, you're not really missing much, but if you do want to dig deep into the lore of Mike, definitely check him out. Mike also has tapes under the DJ Black Power moniker. This is his producer name. He about has like 4 to 5-ish tapes under that moniker, which are solid. They're good. I just won't be covering them in this video. I'm only covering the core albums and mixtapes that basically have, you know, made Mike the artist that he is today. I know Mike is dropping like 2 more albums this year. I know he's probably not going to be retired for 10 plus, 20 plus years, honestly. The man is still in his 20s. He has a long ways to go in his career, but already in his short time has created quite the discography as it is. So I just want to talk about it. This is a Mike praising video, and I'll tell you this right now. There is not one bad Mike project. There are albums that are okay, albums that are better than others. You're not going to get too much of a negative ranking from yours truly. Before I go any further, I'm going to create a new row, put Years Alone in there, because that is indeed a single. Now we're going to get into the tier list itself. Like I said, not going to talk about the EPs. If you want to tap into the EPs because you're a huge Mike fan and you want to know more lore, trust me, go ahead and do it. I'm just going to put them all in the C tier because a lot of them are about the same. Belgian Butter, Crimson, Rafa, and Jungle Boy are definitely EPs that, you know, show the rawness of Mike. You can definitely see the potential and the promise within his sound, but honestly, they're not something I'd necessarily go back to. I'd probably rank them in this. Crimson is definitely the weakest one out of all of them, and then Belgian Butter being probably the strongest. Nothing too crazy or too, you know, mind-blowing in the grand scheme of things, but definitely, you know, you can definitely hear the rawness and the talent that Mike brings to the table. Resistance Man, decent EP, something that came out in the same timeline as Renaissance Man, Black Soap, Warm My Pen, all that jazz. So I think it's a good EP building upon that same aesthetic, which we'll get into once we actually get into the albums. Tonight With You could probably be in B tier. I think the opening track, Anu, is hard as shit. I think the rest of the EP, though it is very, very wonky and experimental in the grand scheme of Mike's discography, I think it's just okay. The Ones Who Were Made by Time, definitely not one of the stronger EPs for Mike. I think it's on the rather midder side, just like Crimson and Rafa. It definitely shows, again, great promise in what is to come from Mike. But the best EP out of all of them is By the Water. I think this one is truly the one that stands out the most, and definitely you should check out. It's kind of like an aftermath of what is coming after May God Bless Your Hustle. A very solid project, and Mike was definitely on a certain type of peak during this time. We're going to be starting from the beginning. 2015's Winter, New York. This is a very impressive debut. It is a B-tier album to me. I think this is a very impressive debut for what Mike has shown up to this point. The opening track, Snowfalls, is absolutely ridiculous, along with Ghost in a Shell with Medhane is honestly a top tier Mike track. I like how right away he shows you his very heavy and introspective lyrics, something that you will see throughout the rest of his career. I think the whole narrative of him grappling everything around himself and in the world, losing connection with, you know, himself, also trying to rekindle that connection that he had was pretty dope. I think in a way he displays a lot of humor on this project as well. I think the very eclectic sound of his mixes right away show that he is definitely on a different level than a lot of his contemporaries. But a lot of this album is very raw in what Mike is doing, and honestly what makes it B tier and not like anything higher is that he just kind of builds upon everything so much stronger in the future. But there's a great set of tracks on this album that are definitely must listen, I feel like. But you just can tell that he's only going to get better from here, and it's very obvious. Do love the rawness, do love the introspection on here, do love how cold the atmosphere of the project is. A lot of the production choices is good, just isn't fully realized yet. And I think a lot of his future projects tidy up anything that was wrong with this project originally. So good opener, and you can see the promise in what's going down. Alright, next one we got is Longest Day, Shortest Night, and honestly I do feel like this is kind of a step down from Winter, New York. Much like Winter, New York, I think this one definitely gives you a good set of interesting beats on here. I think this album gives you kind of the vibe of checking in on a friend, tapping in with an old friend, seeing how they're doing, and Mike definitely gives you a check-in on how he's feeling. He touches on religion, a lot of issues that him and his sister face, a lot of angst for the future and what adulthood holds for him. At a young age, Mike is writing some of the most deepest and darkest content, but I feel like with this project, it's way more unfocused in comparison to Winter, New York. I don't know why, like sites like Rate Your Music and whatnot label this as an album. This is just a mixtape, honestly. A set structure or narrative. A lot of this is pretty much like its own individual song, individual painting, you know what I mean? In comparison to Winter, New York, I think a lot of the ideas on this project are just done better in the future, but as a project alone, it's a step down into how all over the place it kind of is. But with that being said, it's still a pretty decent project. Next one is May God Bless Your Hustle. Oh man. Listen man, there's a lot of things to talk about with this album. The one that basically took Mike to a whole different level, and that is May God Bless Your Hustle. I want to put this in S so bad, just because of how influential this project is and how essential this project is to abstract hip-hop, to the lo-fi rap wave, everything in regards to it. This album basically set up the era from 2018 to now. Like, it basically influenced Earl Sweatshirt, some rap songs. But, I feel like a lot of the shit that he has come up with lately, it's just better. Don't get this album wrong. Don't take this album lightly. Songs like Somebody Please, Hunger, Armor, Pigeon Feet, Greedy, Forever in Flight, Rainforest, Stand Out, Years Alone, Rock Bottom. This album is a certified underground classic. 100%, it's an essential. It is a must listen in his discography. On top of that, this album has so much emotion to it. This album is heart-wrenching. When I first heard this album when I was like, I don't know, 16, 17, 18, I don't fucking remember. When I first listened to this album, it hit me. It hit me hard. I was thinking about life a lot. The term depression is not a phase, though so simple, means so much. Mike takes you on a trip, going deep inside his mind of all of his anxieties, his insecurities, puts it all on wax. How the production on here is so dusty and raw, takes it up to another direction, and the way he flips a lot of these samples and structures these beats, this shit directly influences a lot of shit is coming out today that has came out since this project has come out. I think this album is one of those albums that you'll listen to it once and it'll stick with you forever. I want to put this in S tier, but I feel like a lot of the ideas on this project are tightened up in later projects. When it comes to influence, S tier, 100%, not even fucking close. But when it comes to actual music and what he does kind of later, I'm putting it in A tier. This project is special, 100%. After this, we got Black Soap, and honestly, this is Mike's weakest album to date. Shortest album, 7 tracks, but honestly, this is like the most okay set of tracks that Mike has made up to this point. A lot of the sounds and the beats are pretty experimental, so I guess I'll give it that and how different it is to the rest of his project, and I like the whole concept of Black Soap and whatnot, but at the same time, honestly, like, the performances from Mike are solid, but the features, like the feature on Of Home is fucking trash. It's just one song, but there's 7 tracks on here, and there's not a lot of room for error. So if there is a feature on there that is trash, that is dog shit, it's gonna hurt the album quite a bit. I feel like a lot of the ideas on this project aren't really fleshed out, but the production, just how he composes a lot of the sequencing throughout the project, it does make it strong enough to where it is a decent listen. It just isn't as memorable. Next one we have is Renaissance Man. Interesting concept with Renaissance Man, but it's just not anything that kind of grabs me to want to re-listen. I think tracks like Resistance Man and Peace Offerings is pretty damn good. Some good sample flips throughout the project. The muddy mixes are still there, but it's not like improving on anything. It's more just Mike finding his sound even more. You got some good highlights on here. Good concept. I think this is his only project under the UK Lex Records label. But honestly, like, this one, it definitely doesn't have me coming back to it more because there's just so much better Mike projects, but it's still pretty good for what it delivers. Then the next one is the one that basically blew up Mike even more. It came out at a perfect time. We got War in My Pen, and listen, man, hear me out. I'm putting this in B tier. It's a good album. It's a pretty damn good project. The run from October Baby to Prayers is one of the best runs in Mike's whole entire discography. Never Knocked and Prayers, fucking ridiculous. Some of Mike's strongest tracks ever. But we gotta be honest with ourselves with this project, man. After that run and before that run, it's not the craziest Mike work ever. It's good, don't get me wrong, but outside of that run of fucking peak after peak after peak, you're not really touching what's coming up next in his discography. It's a good setup for what's to come, and it definitely got a lot of eyes on him. Definitely kind of overrated in some circles, I feel like. And another thing that made it just so much more bigger and I guess so much more beloved is the fact that this same year, Earl Sweatshirt, Some Rap Songs dropped. I'm just saying, like, with that dropping, then this dropping literally a month after, people were on this shit. They were going absolutely ballistic for this album. Mike's influence over Earl on Some Rap Songs and then dropping an album right after Earl is kind of like, oh, it was a no-brainer. This album was just perfectly timed on release, if we're being completely honest. Both that being said, like, the very, very glitchy samples on here definitely make this album stand out from the rest of Mike's discog. Navy Blue and Medhane are very, very strong as well. Jadesy, King Carter's on here again. For what you get in such a good track run, the rest of the project just doesn't hold up to that fantastic run. Good project, might I say great. Next one we got is Tears of Joy. It's better than War in My Pen. It's so close to A tier. I just feel like this album's a little too long for my liking, but honestly, this is Mike's saddest album to date. This shit's sad. Suffocate made me cry. His writing in with his flows and his delivery just add a whole nother element to just complete pain. Like, if you're listening to this album and you're out for a walk, someone needs to check on you, because it's It is just a lot to take in, and how detailed he is when it comes to that aspect is, there's not a lot of rappers who can do what he does. This one right here was definitely Mike at his lowest. Next one we got is probably Mike's most polarizing project, and that is Weight of the World. Why I say it's his most polarizing is because just one of the biggest critics on the internet gave it a review, in a very negative one, and since then this album has been disrespected in what it brings. This album, I want to put it in S, because I think this album, with every Mike album that has been prior to this album, I think he finally mastered what he was trying to go for with this project. The dustiness, the hard-hitting lyrics, aesthetically, this album is fucking beautiful. Love Supremacy, one of the best openers in his discography. Weight of the Word is fucking crazy. No, Delicate, What's Home, Coat of Many Colors, what else we got? More Gifts, Allstar with Earl Sweatshirt. This album is heavily disrespected, I feel like. I feel like this is Mike mastering it all. When it comes to the chops and the samples, Mike is just definitely on a whole nother level on this project. Writing, heavier than ever. It's even more minimalist, I will say, on this project. The song lengths, in a surface level, might seem underdeveloped, but to be honest, they're all connecting to a bigger theme, which kind of like ends up in the no to Weight of the Word section area of the project. The one thing that holds this project back from being completely perfect or S tier is kind of how weird it ends. Like, it leaves off on such a cliffhanger with Allstar. I feel like there was another climax waiting to happen, but then it just kind of blue balls you. So I was kind of looking for a track with much more finality at the end, but for the most part, I think the sequencing on here is very well done, and aesthetically, I think how Mike very much just mastered the very dusty sound that he has been known for doing up to this point. It was very well done. Then the next one is Disco. I was conflicted about this album when making this ranking. This is a complete contrast in what Weight of the World was. This one is much more positive, optimistic, more looking forward. For its runtime, it does kind of lose steam in the latter half. Album starts phenomenal with Evil Eye. Like, Evil Eye is one of Mike's best intro tracks ever. I think aesthetically, the album cover itself is one of Mike's best album covers easily, but I feel like this album a lot of times kind of gets lost in the bunch as you go down to the track list, like Frogville and Sandra. You could have trimmed the fat off this project and made it more concise and just keep the highs on here, and you would easily have an A tier project. This album is very much leaning on that A tier line, but there's just some things that I feel like Mike taps into that are more polished on the next projects, and then this is just kind of like themes and aesthetics on this project are kind of a bit of the same. I think rapping wise, it is definitely one of Mike's strongest, I feel like. I think the humor on Zaza is pretty dope as well. Crystal Ball is a dope ass song too. A lot of his sample work is very well done on this project. It's very colorful and warm. But I feel like as a whole project, the sequencing of it just kind of like drags it down and makes the pacing feel a little off throughout. It's a very good project, but I feel like there's more things that could have been done to make it a little more tighter. Next one we got is Beware the Monkey, and everything that I feel like Disco was going for when it comes to being more optimistic and positive, trying to better yourself, self-love. I think Beware the Monkey does that and more, and might I say it is better than May God Bless Your Hustle. I think the production on here is very tight-knit. I think this is the album that Disco was kind of pushing forward towards. I feel like Disco is a little bit more darker and weirder, whereas Beware the Monkey is probably Mike's most accessible project up to this point, and definitely way more warmer, way more brighter, way more of a vibe. Like how Mike touches on his mental health on here, and kind of like in a new life, and you know, looking towards his family, friends, basketball. He loves himself some basketball, don't he? I think ultimately kind of like show that he's in a better place a lot of the samples and a lot of the airiness of this project is just definitely just gives you good hope and a good mindset. I feel like this album is good for the soul, I will say. Don't really have too many complaints with this project, honestly. Some tracks here and there I feel like are more memorable than others. Like Weight of the World, this is close to S tier, but there's something on the way that just tops it in every single way. And then I feel like in some areas on this project, especially tracks like Eczema and Light, I feel like they're interesting plot devices within the concept and sequencing. It kind of makes the pacing a little weird, I can't even hold you. So that's like a little meh point for me, but they're not bad tracks individually. It's more in the grand scheme of the sequencing that it just kind of like throws me off, and I kind of find it a little jarring. That's the thing that's holding it back from S tier. Don't get me wrong, it's still a great project. It's an amazing project. Definitely do listen, because some of the beats on here, Mike's performance on here, he bars the fuck up on this. Then, you know, Mike goes a little quiet till we get into the fall, where he drops a collab tape with Alchemist and Wiki. I don't really got much to say about this project. This project is pretty middle brow to me, but I will say it's better than Renaissance Man. I think I prefer it over By the Water, so I'll put it right here. Disappointing for who's on this project, but it's not a bad project either. I think a lot of the Alchemist beats are pretty kind of run-of-the-mill for the most part. You do indeed get some highs like One More or Stargate. I think Stargate is fucking amazing. That is probably my favorite track on there. Mayor's a Cop is a good track as well. Mike's performance is pretty solid on here too, and I think Wiki's performance is nice as well. The chemistry is good. I just feel like this album just wasn't as ambitious as I hoped it to be. It was just a very calm and chill, airy album, you know, that you can chill to, but it wasn't anything outside of that. I was just kind of left wanting more from it. But with that being said, it's not a bad project. It just it was not that strong to me in the grand scheme of things. That same year, shortly after, Burning Desire. Do I need to say anything? 21 to 24 tracks of just pure bliss. This is the most fully complete, realized Mike album. Pretty much all his albums into one when it comes to aesthetic and production. Mike's sticking close to a narrative on here. It's set up as like a soundtrack to a movie, kind of like a romantic horror. But this album is honestly, like, Burning Desire is fucking peak. I have to go back and revise my 2023 list, because this is album of the year for 2023. This album is damn near perfect, just from a rapping front and a production front. The way he structured these beats, he found his inner J Dilla, Madlib, and MF Doom on here, creating such a muddy atmosphere mixed with like some vaporwave vibes and shit. Like this is definitely his most densest work when it comes to production. His shit is fucking immaculate. Rapping wise, you get some of his catchiest flows on here. The way that he rides a lot of these just beautiful sample chops is out of this world, and it's like the perfect rendition of what would you want from a J Dilla, Madlib, Doom with Doom rapping project ever. Like, this shit is fucking peak. It's one of the best albums of the 2020s. There's not really much to say with this. You just gotta listen to yourself. I was tripping on my first reaction saying that you could trim a few things. No, you cannot. Everything all adds together. Even my least favorite track on here is a fucking banger. He got his fucking weed rollers to make one of the best tracks of the year. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. Tracks like the title track and Snake Charm, like, are representations of what I mean when it comes to J Dilla level chopping and sequencing with each chop. Like, how the fuck do you do that? And then finally, we got Pinball, Tony Seltzer, and honestly, this is just a good, solid album with bangers, something to vibe to, nothing too crazy, nothing too deep. I don't really got much to say other than Mike is just on his flex shit on this. Like, you get some bars that you would never think of Mike saying, but he does say them. Smoking loud thunder like God is snoring, like, is fucking crazy. Like, there's bars like that, is like, oh, Mike could be just a fucking flex rapper and get away with it. It's cool. Definitely interested in what Pinball 2 is going to sound like, but I thought this was a good project for what it is. I think I prefer Mike on his own production, but you know, him finding a good middle ground and good chemistry with Tony Seltzer was definitely an interesting direction, I feel like. That is the tier list. That's where we're at. This is how I feel about Mike's discography. I know he's going to drop more projects. This is not it. So I'll just have to see where it's going to land on this tier list. There's not one bad project he has dropped. Some albums are better than others. Some albums are okay, but everything else is fucking good to fucking peak. So that's all I gotta say. One of the best artists today. Continues to get better with every single release. I'm just wondering where it's going to end up. Already with such a dense discography, you could argue that he is one of the best rappers of all time. But yeah, the consistent growth artistically from Mike is something to just be in awe of. I'm interested to see what he's got going on next. So those are my thoughts. Let me know your guys' ranking in the comment section below. I'll leave it at that. I hope y'all enjoyed. Like, subscribe for more, bell icon for notifications, all that jazz. And yeah, see you on the next one. Peace. I'm losing my voice.